the chart. We're here and we have a lot of drama to process in episode 7 of Gen Q season 2.
We sure do. This season, we are once again watching the L Word Generation Q with you, bringing you our unfiltered take on the new series reboot every Tuesday because, of course, Shell, we can't get enough of those LA lesbians.
I'm Sheltering in, managing producer at Extra, and I want to know where I can get Alice's powder blue suit.
I'm Erica Lenti, senior editor at Extra, and I really wish that I had been promposed to with those umbrellas in a fountain, beautiful dance sequence. I'm all about it.
So cute.
For what it's worth, Gigi's really into you.
Can I trust you?
I'd like to think so.
I did something naughty. Hey.
Okay, Erica, let's jump right into themes. What stuck out to you for episode 7?
It seemed like for once everyone was kind of taking a step back and really reevaluating things. We had Danny, trying to evaluate if things with Gigi were going to work, not wanting to rush into anything. We had our lovely Angie trying to figure out if she should break up with Jordy. We had Alice, who was, thinking about things with Nat, but taking a step back and thinking, like, what does this really mean for me? So I think it's growth. It was nice to see. But I do think that this was an episode where people really had to think about the choices that they've been making when perhaps they haven't been thinking very much about them.
There was also a lot of sex.
There was a lot of sex, too. But when they weren't thinking, essentially, they were having sex, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's jump right in with Bet. After securing a CAC show for Pippa, she finally agrees to sign with the gallery. And to celebrate, Bet brings Pippa to a charity event hosted by Dana's. Alice and Shane are thrilled to finally meet the Pippa Pascal. And the two flirt throughout the evening and they finally kiss. They end up going back to the gallery and they do it in a giant light installation. Super gay. Meanwhile, Carrie shows up to the event in an attempt to bond with Bet a little bit. She is, after all, Angie's mom, but Bet doesn't want any of that and tells Carrie that she's not interested in anything other than a cordial acquaintanceship. So it's the return of bitchy Bet, it seems, Erica.
Yeah.
What did you think of Bet kind of being this mean girl to Carrie?
I will say, first off, I was very happy to see Bet not crying at art, but having sex in art for once. So that was the highlight. But yeah, she's still just being her typical Scorpio Bet self.
I bumped into Bet Porter, and it did not go good.
I don't really get why she's such a jerk to Carrie. Perhaps part of it is she really does believe that Carrie is not a good match for Tina, or she just genuinely doesn't like her vibe, which I don't really get because Carrie seems incredibly lovable from what we've seen. And I know we've only seen her in pieces and we have way, way, way more history with Bet. But I can't see why Bet wouldn't be happy. I mean, Angie seems to love Carrie. She invited her to the therapy session that they had all together as a family. So clearly Angie sees Carrie as part of her family as well. Should that not be enough for Bet? Like, shouldn't she be able to be the bigger person in this scenario? I don't know why she's like this. She always wants Tina when Tina's unavailable. So maybe that's the situation. I don't know. What did you think?
That's an interesting take, and I think one that probably a lot of us have. What stood out to me is like the vast contrast between, I guess, like the subcultures of lesbians inside of this community. We've addressed it a few times in the past to mixed results, like when Max gets thrown into the mix, when Jenny started dating them, back in the OG series. This felt very familiar to that, this stereotype of, like a dyke, like an OG dyke that just doesn't seem to fit into like the glitz and glam of this LA lesbian scene. And like, I think it's very interesting that the show is almost, I don't know what the word is. The show is like owning its pretension around some of these folks. I don't know. Like, it kind of makes me hate these people a little bit because there are lots of different types of people in our community, and you're not always going to like everyone. Just because we're all queer doesn't mean we're going to all get along. Like, what did you think of, that dynamic?
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the Max situation. I think the difference here is that it's not like Carrie is part of a different socioeconomic status necessarily. Like Carrie is a lawyer, right? So it's not like she's a working class person who is suddenly being thrown into this like world of like wealthy people like Bette Porter and Shane and Alice. And is it bad to say that Bette is kind of becoming a bit of an anti-hero to me? She's like kind of awful. She treats people really horribly and expects things in return. And we kind of get to see the effect of that through the lens of Carrie for once. Like, I do think, you know, we've seen Bette be a jerk to Tina and the effects of, you know, cheating on her, for instance, but that's the L word. Everybody cheats on one another. Everyone has sex with other people. They break up, they make up, whatever. But just seeing the sort of the social implications here, like watching Carrie feel completely broken up about like the mean girl in Bette, that Bette and her crew of like, as you said, glitzy, glamorous LA lesbians, and she, the poor butchy dyke from, you know, wherever, just doesn't fit in there.
I see mirrors with Finley as well. It's just like with Sophie being like, why aren't you an adult? Danny's like, get a job. And Finley's backstory too is like, you know, I'm from the Midwest. I had a really rough upbringing, and like I think Carrie also mentioned that like she was on antidepressants her entire life. It's like all the woe is me lesbians seem to be getting the shit end of the story stick here, and all of the LA lesbians are just kind of like, get therapy, like get your shit together. I have more glamorous things to do. I think it's really an interesting look at how they're approaching these characters that I don't know if I like, but I feel a certain way about it.
That was a very interesting way to look at it. And I would hate for viewers to be like, yes, like Tibet is a thing again, because we kind of need to examine what that means
right
about this like insular community. And it might actually be a nice opportunity to, like, as you said, step back and be like, who are these people? And like, do I actually hate them or do I love them?
Right.
It adds a depth to the show that I think we kind of need. Even though it's a soap opera, like let's get some depth in there. They've been doing a lot of really good stuff around other issues, but this is something that's super interesting. I think I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Totally, me as well. Speaking of different theories, like, do we think that Carrie is possibly an alcoholic? Do you think she could have lied to Shane about being called out on the AA meeting? She claims that in her drunken state when Shane and Tess bring her home that she might not be able to marry Tina. Like, what do we think about that?
Yeah, my first thought was that she was lying to Shane. It might be interesting, and we're going to talk about this later, to see some parallels of how alcohol is used to cope with stuff with Finley, if there is, if Carrie does indeed have a drinking problem. That might be an interesting way to look at it from, you know, an older lesbian, a younger lesbian, how they're working through those things and what they mean, and how it's generational. That could be interesting to me. So we'll have to see.
All right, let's jump into Sophie and Finley, who are seriously making up for some lost time, just doing it whenever and wherever they can. That includes getting it on when during Sophie's Queer Rebellion segment when it airs for the first time. And of course, they get caught by Alice. The pair later head to the charity event that Dana's is hosting and get a little tipsy, and they end up getting pulled over by the cops on their way home. So Erica, let's just get this out of the way. How do we feel about people having sex at work?
Who are these people? Okay.
Oh my God.
I have to say, so my fiance Ariel works in television, and she was incredibly dismayed at this scene. She was like, Sophie is a producer. Why isn't she in the control room? Why isn't she in like Alice's ear during this segment? It's her first segment. Why is she not watching it? I personally took issue with the fact that these two were having sex when these women were telling like an incredibly emotional story about how they were like, they had to fight to be together and have rights within the workplace, or like get like spousal rights and insurance and all of that, I think from the other episode. Yeah. Like, does that turn you on? Like, I'm sorry. It was just so horrendous. Alice should have fired them. How did Finley get in the building? Like,
She doesn't even
Alice,
work there anymore.
Yeah, Alice is a huge talk show host. They don't just let anybody in.
Quiet Rebellion is a good segment, but like I don't know if it's that good to keep her around. Like just stop at work, just stop it. But aside from all of that,
Yes.
I mean, it's clear that that Finley and Sophie have a very physical connection, but I think it's becoming clear to us as an audience that maybe they're realizing that they need to learn more about each other. What did you think about some of those conversations this episode?
Yeah, I was actually really grateful that they did this. This is probably the first time that I actually enjoyed seeing Finley and Sophie interact since last season, mainly because we've seen so much of their connection being just like based in their horniness. Whereas I don't know how much Sophie knows about like Finley's ambitions and what she wants to do with life. And obviously major red flag is like her drinking issues, which perhaps are going to be unveiled now because of what happened in the car with the cops pulling them over. Who knows? Might be a red herring. This show loves those. But I think that it's about time that these two, finally have a conversation about the big things in life, which is what I think the relationship was really missing. I mean, with Danny and Sophie, we knew everything. We could tell that they knew everything about each other. They both wanted kids. Like, they knew all the big stuff. They wanted to get married. They had a plan for their life. And so when Sophie, cheated on Danny with Finley, she was leaving that and going into like a huge unknown, and she's still in that place of unknown. So I'm looking forward to them figuring this stuff out and seeing if they actually are compatible beyond the sex, which they've been having a lot of, clearly.
Totally. I think it's interesting that they're showing the pros and cons of that is sort of through these conversations. Like early on in the episode, Sophie is kind of like, what should we have for dinner? Can you even cook a meal for yourself? And seems kind of annoyed. But then later at the big poker event, when Sophie runs into like a big exec head, she seems impressed that Finley can hold her own in front of, this very important person from work. And more so as herself, you know what I mean? She's not pretending to be something that she's not. Finley is just who she is. And I think, it seems like Sophie is a little worried at first that Finley might speak out of turn, and then ends up being pretty impressed by how she held herself together. So I agree with you. It'll be very interesting to see how these two will connect outside of the bedroom. Okay, let's jump right into Danny and Gigi. Danny is a bit thrown off after Gigi has just admitted that she has feelings for her. She really needed a friend in that moment, and so doesn't really know how to hold those feelings. She's also afraid of what Bet will think. I mean, who isn't afraid of Bet right now? She can be pretty scary. But Gigi says not to worry about that. And at the end of the night, the two of them finally have their first kiss. Now, Erica, do we love Danny and Gigi as a ship? I know that most of our viewers are ready to see Gigi do something different. About 85% of you said that the Bet and Gigi breakup was long overdue. So what do we think of Danny and Gigi?
Yeah, I agree with the audience saying that the breakup was overdue. I think Gigi definitely deserved better. It was really obvious that Bet was like not feeling it. I'm still not sure about Danny and Gigi, to be completely honest. I felt that their kiss was a little cringe, which makes me sad because I like both Danny and Gigi. It was a little like, can I trust you? And I was sort of like, this really feels super contrived and soap opera-y, which I know the L Word is basically just a lesbian soap opera, but like they could have done more there with the dialogue. They have good chemistry together. I think they could have done more with it. I guess I'm curious to see where it goes. I do think that Danny is right in that she's nervous to move on after she was cheated on with the person she thought she was going to spend her life with. I think Gigi is a trustworthy person, but I kind of hope that this will just be like a fling kind of thing. I don't know how much compatibility they have in the long term, but I think that they could have fun together. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. I'm really loving Danny's character, like quite a bit more than in season one, perhaps a complete 180. When she has her conversation with Finley at the charity event, um, she has this actual like real beautiful, intimate, emotional moment with Finley in which she says, because I seem put together, uh, no one is inclined or no one thinks to hold me when I need it most. And I was like, damn, girl, like for her to say it to perhaps the person she would least want to admit that to. And I think she realizes that as well because she says, if you ever use that against me, like I'll destroy you. But she was able to have this moment of weakness in front of who is possibly her like frenemy right now. And like the fact that Danny is the one being reasonable in this ship, she's the one that's saying, I need to take it slow. Hey man, like I needed a friend and you just moved in. Like Danny is actually, got a really good stable head on her shoulders. And like, I'm team Danny. Like I want to see something good for her. And if it's Gigi in like a fling or something that just gets her through this rough time, or it blossoms into something else, like I kind of want to see more Danny now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Go off. Danny, no Danny hate here. We're officially Danny stans. I love it.
Okay, let's jump into Alice and Nat again. Okay, sure. Alice runs into Nat while out for brunch and stops and says hello. That somehow devolves into the two of them having car sex. I mean, we do know that Nat loves sex in public places, so okay, cool. The two of them continue to hook up and sneak around, but by the end of the episode, Alice puts on the brakes and realizes that Nat is not going to change. She's still flirting with people. Sometimes it just takes a few tries for a breakup for some people. So perhaps that's what's happening with Alice and Nat. Erica, what did you think of this step backwards?
Yeah, I'm so tired of regression. I think that's what I hate about this. We only have 3 episodes left in the season after this episode.
Wow. Okay. Are you two?
We just hang out and stuff.
Okay.
Sounds totally believable.
Did we really need an episode where Alice goes back to Nat and is like, oh, it's still not going to work? Like, I think we kind of knew this already. She took a step forward with Tom last episode, and it felt like she was finally moving in the right direction. And now she's like, actually, I'm just going to have some more sex with Nat. Why not? Let's just keep doing it and see what happens. I guess you're right that, like, some couples do need to break up a few times, but like, I don't know. Alice is old enough to know, what she knows. I don't know why that we had to go through this. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, poor Tom. He has no idea any of this is happening. And I know that they slept together once. They don't have any like commitment in any capacity. I guess my issue is less like her sleeping with Tom and then going to sleep with Nat, like whatever, but she made a whole big deal about how she was monogamous and how polyamory wasn't going to work for her. So I'm kind of getting a bit like confused. And I know obviously like people are entitled to like change their minds about things or whatever, but I guess as a viewer, it's a bit confusing as to like what she's doing, like where she wants to go. How did you feel about it?
I can certainly understand wanting something that feels safe and familiar, even if it's not good for you. So like, I think that's realistic. I know that it stretches out Alice's storyline and kind of makes it drag a little bit, but there are elements to that are certainly relatable. I will say that, Alice was wearing a pretty sick blue suit this episode. I would like to see Alice in more fashion choices like that. Okay, let's move over to my favorite ship this season, Shane and Tess. Shane is hosting a charity event with all of the proceeds going to an MS fund in honor of Tess's mom, which is, again, very, very sweet. The two of them end up kind of babysitting Carrie a little bit, who proceeds to get a little too lit, and she can't help herself get home. So the two of them take her in Shane's Jeep. Shane admits that she couldn't have dealt with that without Tess. Tess finally has a moment of clarity and decides to take the plunge, and they have their first kiss, also in the rain. What is it with the rain making out themes in this episode? We've been waiting for this finally, and it seems like all of you guys are stoked about it too. In our Twitter and Instagram polls, 92% of you were really hoping for Shane and Tess to blossom into a relationship, and it looks like it's happening. Erica, what do we think?
Yeah, I'm all about it. I thought it was super cute. I thought they had great chemistry. I love that they sort of built up to this, as opposed to just like dropping them into a relationship like 2 episodes in or whatever. It felt like a nice progression. I could have done without Sherry Jaffe, but it's fine. It seems like Shane is finally growing up a little bit. Seems like Shane wants another sort of monogamous thing, the real deal. It doesn't seem like she's interested in the hookups, despite her past behavior, both in the original series and in Gen Q. So I'm interested to see what happens. I mean, I hate to bring it up again, but that poker game is still unresolved. So who knows what awaits this couple. Shell, do you think that Shane has actually grown? I know that you are like captain of the ship, but I'm curious to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, I think I'm turning into a Shane stan as well. I think that the growth is happening in more than just one place in Shane's life. You know, she's also seemed to have matured as a friend and just like a person with a lot of empathy and compassion. Earlier on in the episode, just as the charity event is starting and she's having conversations with Alice and Bet when they run into Pippa, like, you know, Alice gives her a really hard time when Shane is like kind of pushing her on like what's going on with Nat. And finally she's just like, well, like, sorry for being a friend that cares about your well-being. That kind of makes a side comment to like make sure they're put at separate tables. You know, Shane knows exactly how to help her friends in the way that they need. If it's tough love with Alice or if she's got to work on the sly for Bet, you know, she was really compassionate with Carrie, even though she, you know, she was like, Tina's my homegirl. And if you're sneaking off to AA meetings and no one knows about this, like, I gotta call you on it. Like, it's just,
yep,
man, like I want Shane to be my friend. I want a friend that will look out for me the way Shane does. And of course, as you mentioned, like, I'm just loving the ship that is happening with Shane and Tess. You know, this change into a more long game approach, you know, wooing a girl is just like so sweet. You know me, I'm like a hopeless romantic. So Shane, Team Shane, season 2, you're killing it.
You know what this means though, Shell?
What does that mean?
We have an absence of a boy on this show.
Ooh.
We need to bring someone in.
Who will it be? Maybe Micah, because he wasn't here this episode. Okay, so lastly here, we're going to talk about the cutest ship of Elwood Gen Q, Angie and Geordi. So Angie is starting to think that Geordi is a little too preoccupied with regular teenage stuff. Perhaps they're in different parts of their lives. So she's actually ready to go and break up with Geordi in this secret spot, and then is given like a list of instructions to like put on headphones, put on a raincoat, put on your boots, and Angie's like, what is happening? And then this very elaborate, adorable promposal happens with what? Erica, what do we think of this promposal?
What do we think? What is there to think besides these two are perfect? They are such a great break from all of the drama and bullshit that everybody else is dealing with. But I once again, before I get into like how perfect and cute and like everything that they are, like, I have to note that Angie is still the most mature and level-headed person on the show in relationships. She's like, okay, we're not working out that well. Like, I'm dealing with something heavy. Geordi is dealing with something that like a normal teenager has to deal with, you know, prom, whatever. And I'm going through something more extraordinary in my life. We're not going to work out. Maybe we need to break up. And she like makes that decision maturely and is like ready to go in person and deal with it. The show needs to like take some lessons from whoever's writing Angie, totally. Or just make the characters better, you know?
Absolutely.
But the promposal, perfect. Like absolute levity in an episode of heavier stuff. And I loved it. It was the best outdoor scene. I'm really glad that they didn't make them kiss in the rain like everybody else.
Okay, it's our favorite part of the podcast, the superlatives round, where we each pick our best and sometimes worst moments from the episode. Erica, what was your pick?
Okay, I'm not picking a worst this week. And how could I when we had the best dance number? What could I pick aside from Angie and Geordi? I loved it. I thought it was exactly what Angie needed. Some levity, some lightness, some feeling like a teenager. Jordy was absolutely adorable. I thought the whole thing was like super cute, super over the top, super gay. I'm obsessed with this couple. So no other pick from me. How about you, Shell?
Speaking of super gay, I will say that the funniest self-referential moment this episode was Alice and Carrie talking about lesbian representation on television. Carrie, who is actually Rosie O'Donnell, is kind of like, you're the first lesbian TV talk show host we've ever seen on TV, aside from Ellen. Wow, it really meant a lot to me. Obviously, Rosie O'Donnell had her own talk show as well. So that was like just a really funny thing for the writers to put into this script. I really loved that. And my top comment from the week comes from our viewer Gina over on YouTube, where she says, I fully disagree on so many fronts, but also I'm super loving these recaps. Oh, thank you so much, Gina. That means a lot to us. She also says, I melted and died for Sophie and Finley, and I love that weird scene with Micah and Danny. We will agree to disagree on Sophie and Finley, but I do love the relationship that they're building with Micah and Danny. So thanks for sharing your thoughts with us. We really love to read that.
Yeah, and those are just our top picks. Tell us what you think in the comments down below. We might pick you next week to be read out in the podcast. So leave those comments for us.
Well, that's it for this episode. Tune in next week when we talk about episode 8 of Gen Q and we find out who will actually stay together. I'm Shelteringen.
And I'm Erica Lenti. Off the Chart is produced by Shelteringen. Our technical producer is Lido House. Our executive producer is Rachel Giza. And our music is by Kid Coolit.
If you've been enjoying Off the Chart, please do all the things like, comment, subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts, or you can check us out over on Twitter at Extra Magazine. Until next time, bye!
Bye! I asked my girlfriend in high school to go to prom with me with 2 Barbie dolls. And prom in her locker, which I don't think is like a promposal.